YouTube channel of the international law. We talk about the international security with Martin Arostegui, the principal journalist, investigative journalist in the world. Hi, Martin, how are you?
Hello, Christian, nice to see you. Wonderful to talk to you again.
Okay, we start in this moment about the Bolivia. You know, is the scenario for the investigate of the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. And now we talk about this important event.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, it's quite amazing that we bridged this subject last weekend. And a couple of days later, the Bolivian anti-drug unit and the DEA released information which pretty much confirmed what we were saying. There has been a five-fold increase in the amount of drug routes running out of Bolivia to continents all over the world. We're no longer talking about neighboring countries, but also to Africa, which we mentioned, a new Caribbean route to the United States, probably to Venezuela, as well as markets throughout Latin America. What stands out to me is the apparent expansion of a route through Paraguay, which the FELC says that the mafias involved in smuggling refined cocaine from Bolivia are dealing increasingly with trafficking organizations controlled by Hezbollah, which pass the drug through Paraguay and then on to Argentina and possibly then on to markets in Europe and Africa. So we're seeing here a major expansion and of narco-trafficking operations out of the area, which appeared to have come as a result of information gathered from the arrest of Maximiliano Davila, the former head of the FELC, who was arrested for cooperating and collaborating while being virtually part of protecting major drug smuggling operations from Bolivia. And based on that information, they've been able to draw up a pretty good picture of the type of narco-trafficking routes and the extent, the international connections, and the extent of traffic going out of Bolivia. As you know, Christian, it's relatively recent that Bolivia has become a cocaine-producing country. Originally, it started out as the producer of coca paste. This was when narco-traffic started in the 1970s and 1980s, which was sent up to Colombia, and there it was refined to hit markets in the United States. But as of recent years, I think since about the time that Evo Morales became president, soon after Evo Morales became president, much of the actual finished product actually gets done in Bolivia. So Bolivian narco-traffickers, major narco-trafficking organizations can operate with bases, with their great bases and refineries from Bolivia to distribute the product all over the world. They no longer need to go through necessarily through the Colombian middleman, which has been largely cut out, I think.
Okay, that's very interesting why you talk about the Bolivia. And now we talk about the connection with Mexico and border, the United States border, the security in this moment for the terrorism and cartel of the drugs. You know, what you say about this principal security in the border?
Well, it's the security in the border is completely gone. I mean, it's in fact it's to allow in, because of the Biden administration's policy of allowing in uncontrolled immigration. The security along the border has been downgraded to the point that in areas it doesn't even operate anymore. There is no security. There is no control of the thousands of people coming across every day. And last week, the governor of Arizona, which is one of the states that borders Mexico, Governor Doug Ducey, charged that the border is in fact now in the hands of major narco trafficking and human trafficking organizations. They're basically the same crime syndicates virtually now do both things. And he said that this was completely being facilitated by the policies of the current administration of President Biden, and that he even accused the administration of being the marketing arm of these organizations, which are filling the country not just with illegal with human trafficking, with illegal aliens, but with massive amounts, unprecedented amounts of quantities of drugs, not necessarily cocaine, but the main drugs coming across from Mexico these days apparently consist of fentanyl and methamphetamines, synthetic drugs, which American intelligence and law enforcement agencies believe are produced in China and taken to Mexico for transshipment to the US. The amounts caught are massive. I mean, you're talking about last year, something like 5 tons of fentanyl. And something like, 15 to 20 tons of methamphetamines from China.
For China, that's synthetic drugs.
Synthetic drugs, that's right. And when you consider the massive amount of border traffic there is, and the infrastructure that the narco trafficking groups count with along the Mexican border, all kinds of tunnels, very well mapped out routes through which they can enter their human and drug cargo without being intercepted, holes in the wall, I mean, just everything. You can imagine this is a very small, what they've actually caught, and we're talking about tons of fentanyl and, well, at this point, at least 20 tons of fentanyl and methamphetamine. Must represent a very small amount of what is actually getting through, of the volume that much of it is probably getting through. So this is the situation being encountered in the U.S. border with Mexico. It's very, very worrying.
In this report of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, talk about the Cuba intelligence and Venezuela counterintelligence duo, this special force for the paramilitary files, collectivists, protecting the narco traffic and work with the narco traffic. That's possible for the region, for the security in the region. Talk about this.
Well, certainly. I mean, look, Venezuela's involvement in narco traffic is at the official level. I mean, you both understand that. I mean, Venezuela is for all effects and purposes a real narco state. I mean, there are other countries like Bolivia where obviously narco trafficking organizations have a great deal of sway, where they control a great deal of territory, where they have a lot of facilities and obviously have the security services penetrated to a significant degree. But in Venezuela, you're actually talking about the government that actually is composed of narco traffickers. You have major narco trafficking kingpins, which have held key positions in the Venezuelan government. The former interior minister you had 2 interior ministers or security ministers who are have been indicted by the U.S. on narco trafficking offenses. Okay. So the fact that FAES and the various Bolivian militia groups, including, and of course, you would include among those militia groups the narco terrorist organizations in Colombia, FALN, FARC, FARC and ELN, who operate with impunity in Venezuela, control and move narcotics and protect narcotic shipments is something which is done, of course, with the absolute consent and collaboration in many cases of the Venezuelan government.
Now, the U.S. Department of the State talk about the reward for information to bring Bolivian narcotics traffic to justice. U.S. Department of the State in a common reward of the $5 million for information leading to the conviction of Maximiliano Davila Perez, a Bolivian national. Davila is the former director of the Bolivian Special Force for the fight against drug traffic. That's very, very, very interesting. Now, in this case with Davila, connection with all drugs cartels in Colombia, Venezuela. You talk about the Venezuela, the protect the security for the narco traffic. What do you think about in this case with connection Colombia, Bolivia, and Venezuela is not security for the United States, no?
Well, of course. I mean, the DEA has been operating in the area for a long time. They want to bring Davila to justice. I believe he can be tried first. Well, the Bolivian authorities want to try him first, and there's an extradition request pending for him. They have to get the evidence to be able to push the extradition request and say that they need this man. They need him brought over to the U.S. to be able to assist, to be able to give information that would assist in at this point, continental fight against narcotrafficking. So yeah, they're offering a reward. I don't know how often this has been done, but I believe this is the first time I've heard of the DEA or the State Department offering a cash reward for information about someone who's under arrest. Christian, you're a lawyer. Your father, I know, was involved in counter narcotics. I don't know if you can tell me if you know that this has been done before, but I don't think it has been, has it?
Well, can you repeat? I can.
Well, what I said was basically, this is the first time. I mean, this is the first time, as I know, that the U.S. government has offered a major cash reward for someone who's already was already indicted, was already in prison.
It's first time
on narco trafficking charges. I'm just wondering. I mean, you're a lawyer in Bolivia. Your father was involved in anti-narcotics. Do you know of any case like this before?
No, it's the first case.
Well, I mean, it just shows the degree of desperation, I suppose, that American authorities must feel.
Yeah, it's a similar price. It's a similar price of Chapo Guzman in Mexico, $5 million.
Did they do that in Mexico too to get Chapo Guzman?
Yeah, $5 million.
After he had been arrested?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize that. Yeah. Well, I guess it's the first time it's happened in Bolivia. So sure. Yeah, I know it's unprecedented. Well, I mean, it's indicative of the extent to which narco trafficking has grown in Bolivia. It's becoming it's reaching Mexican levels, Mexican proportions.
That is the reason for the $5 million. It's involving the cartel of the narco traffic and terrorism. This video, this media talk about the connection with the narco traffic and terrorism, subvention the narco traffic and terrorism. This inform talk about this. And now with impact for COVID-19, significant reporting due to lack of tests. Okay, that's go back to the Google map.
Can you just cut a moment, Christian? I have to do something.
This is the border. This American border.
I have to do something this time.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess this is a similar price of the Chapo Guzman, $5 million. $5 million.
Okay. They've got a standard price now.
That's the price. And now we up Davila or $5 million.
They were offering 10. They were offering 10 million at first, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, if they're right, I mean, as I say, you know, Bolivia is reaching the situation. Bolivia is reaching Mexican proportions, so I guess the reward has to be proportional.
It's
the volume being intercepted and the extent of the power of the narco trafficking network is probably similar at this stage.
Similar, yeah. Chief Maximiliano Diabla, $5 million. Chapo Guzman, $5 million. That's incredible. That's the possible connection. That's the Brazilian connection, Montenegro. We talked about in the last video, in the connection with Montenegro and Brazilian PCC and Comando Vermelho, two cartels of drugs. And this is the Techo de Paja. Techo de Paja is a narco traffic, well, it's all narco traffic involving narco trafficking in 1918 years. In his sentence in the United States, Techo de Paja, when he back to Bolivia, we continued with this illicit active. You know about this case, Techo de Paja? He worked with Roberto Suarez, the king of the drug of Bolivia.
Well, sure. I mean, you know, as I said, well, the case of Roberto Suarez is interesting because, I mean, this, as I said, this was when he was the original Bolivian drug lord. A very well-educated man. I think he got to school in England and they came from a very, very fine family. And he made a deal with Escobar, Juan Pablo Escobar in Colombia. That was the main. That was the formed a cartel with him basically. But he was the main provider of the base product before they started growing coca in Colombia. At that time, coca only grew in the Bolivian and the Peruvian Andes, and not in Colombia. So he began, of course, by being the main provider of coca paste for Escobar, who refined it there and then sent it off to the States. But what you've had, the revolution in the narco trafficking industry in Bolivia over recent years has been that Bolivia has become a net producer of cocaine, just putting out the finished product. And this is, I think, obviously the narco traffic that grow exponentially. And the reason why American authorities have obviously focused very much on getting at least trying to control it to some extent, and offering and engaging in counter-narcotics operations there, offering wars, engaging in counter-narcotics operations in Bolivia, which previously probably only occurred in Colombia and Mexico.
He connects with Pablo Escobar. That's true, really. Pablo Escobar. Two pioneers in the drug traffic, Pablo Escobar and Roberto Suarez, the king of the drug. And Techo de Paja worked with Pablo Escobar in the last years.
Of course, the latest information which has come out of the Bolivian anti-drug enforcement unit speaks, of course, of also an expansion of drug trafficking routes from Brazil to Africa, which is what I talked about last time, through Cape Verde and through mainland African routes as well, which is increasingly reaching from which it goes increasingly to Spain. And as I said, the situation in Africa is deteriorating very, very rapidly. I mean, the governments there have become a region that are increasingly losing control of their territory. And in fact, you've had the Russian Wagner group, which has entered the area to a very significant extent. Sorry, Kristen, I believe we've been cut off.
Wait, Martin. The song bad. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we continue. Can you repeat the group connection? You talk about the Wagner Group and Africa, and now the bases of the Russia in Venezuela. Last video talked about this. You know why?
Yeah, well, actually, it's interesting. We were talking last time about the activities of Wagner Group in Latin America. Well, as I said, they're definitely in Venezuela. They played a very important role in protecting the Maduro regime as well as Russian assets there when there was a danger of a coup there a couple of years ago.
It's bad connection. Wait. Hola. No.
Hola, can you hear me?
Te escucho, pero se está cortando la señal. ¿Qué crees que sea?
No sé. Can you hear me now?
Mira, voy a cerrar las páginas y voy a cerrar todo. Pause. Espera. Voy a cerrar todo esto. Por ahí está la memoria. Ok, voy a abrir otra vez. Warner Group. Creo que ahora está mejor. A veces cuando lleno. Wagner Group. Ya. Ahora sí, empezamos de nuevo. Play. 1, 2, 3. Ok. Ya, ahora sí. Okay, this is the Barney Group. You talk about the Barney Group. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the mercenary. It's possible a terrorist or mercenary. What do you think? Is terrorist?
No, well, it's a mercenary organization.
Why is it different with terrorism?
Well, it's a mercenary organization. They usually go in either at the behest of the Russian government or usually contracted. They usually operate in areas where they're contracted by the local government, obviously with the Russian government brokering the deal. And as they're all former military spetsnaz and Russian intelligence officials that run the Wagner Group. Much the same, America has a similar organization called Blackwater, which was very active in Iraq and was run by, again, former CIA, intelligence SEALs, and ex-SEALs, and that kind of thing, which were contracted by the U.S. government or by the Iraqi government with U.S. provided funds to run various security operations in Iraq and other countries as well. It's a very large organization. The Wagner Group is a Russian answer to that, but of course the problem is that it has there are very few controls on it. When you consider the fact that Russia is under a dictatorship, a virtual dictatorship, where the military and the intelligence services have complete and total power. There's absolutely no constraints on their activities of any sort, and they can pretty much act in whichever way they consider necessary or useful to conduct their various international missions. In many cases, this would involve, in the case of Mali, where there's an increasing presence of the Wagner Group, as well as the Central African Republic, they're replacing French troops, French military missions that were previously there, or they're being pulled out by France because they can no longer cope with the extent of casualties that they're taking, to protect new military governments which have come to power. Before, in Mali, for example, France was supporting a civilian government which was attempting to establish some kind of democratic system. It was overthrown by a military coup, a coup of colonels, a group of colonels who France has problems with, and now they're bringing the Russians to supplant the French, because the French are being forced to pull out. And this is being their mission there, or what the government contracted them to fight Al Qaeda, which is very active in Mali, as well as the entire African region of the Sahel. And in this case, yeah, they're fighting a terrorist organization, although that undoubtedly they're becoming involved in probably local. They become involved in any local economic operation, which helps to fund their activities. And narco traffic, I'm sure, is one of them. to the extent that they're involved in terrorist operations, well, I doubt it. It's curious that in the case of in Latin America, the Wagner Group, of course, has a very large presence in Venezuela, and probably in Nicaragua as well. You recently, I don't know if you know that the Russian FSB, or the anti-narcotics unit of the FSB, has been training and advising the Nicaraguan counter-narcotics group, which of course has been totally abandoned by the DEA, it no longer operates and have very good cooperation or contact with the U.S. anti-drug efforts. So yeah, I mean, it's the Russians are obviously getting involved in that area as well, probably increasingly in Latin America as well as Africa.
Is the Barney Group is possible in the future alliance with Argentina country? Now with the president of Argentina, Fernandez, visit to Putin's government in Russia, maybe for alliance strategic, is a possible?
Well, I believe that they're tightening. Yes, they are. They are tightening their cooperation. I believe that the president of Argentina signed an agreement, a deal with Russia to provide technology to build an Argentine nuclear reactor. Wow. In near Buenos Aires, I believe is the location. I mean, if that happens, I mean, that would give Russia considerable clout over Argentina. It would certainly enhance its influence in Argentina. It's interesting, Christian. Some analysts are drawing the conclusion that Russian and Chinese penetration of Latin America is to a large extent coordinated. That the Russians are providing technology in some areas the Chinese cannot or don't have the capacity to, particularly in areas involving military and security technology or systems. That the Russians are in fact creating a security umbrella, a security blanket in Latin America to protect Chinese interests, and in Africa as well. That the Russians do the security work and the Chinese go in to take care of the mines and the oil fields. So I think this is an increasing, and I think this could well be the case in Argentina.
That's the real reason. The deal the China and Russia government do in this week, a deal for cooperation, China and Russia, and interesting, all necessary for do the international relation China and Russia do. The Xi Jinping president China's and Russia Vladimir Putin doing in this week. That's really do.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, you know, much has been talked about an anti-US alliance and all this kind of thing. I'm sure there's some of that. But you know, obviously that's a very important part of their relationship, of their alliance. I would call it a new Eurasian alliance, which would also bring in Iran, inevitably. But I think it's also has to do with both Russia and China cooperating in their decreasing efforts to control other third world continents, mainly Africa and Latin America. I think the cooperation also involves intelligence efforts and the military efforts to secure their control over other regions throughout the world.
It's incredible. But this is the newest scenario in this 2022 year. China and Russia penetrating Latin America, Africa. This is not good for the new years to come in, and for the stability, you know, for the society stability and security international. That's terrible. It's terrible. For conclusion in this video, I am podcast of the Saturday. What is the conclusion, Martin? Can you off your webcam? Is off. Turn off your webcam.
My webcam is off. Great. Hang on, I don't know how to. I really don't know how to get back on. Well, I can't seem to be able to fix it, Christian. I think I'm going to have to just voice. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
No problem.
I guess I'll just voice it over because I don't really say I don't seem to be able to get my camera back on. Well, I mean, there's some good news. The United States and in Iraq, I suppose, in Syria, they managed to kill another leader of ISIS. And actually, as I understand, they had some cooperation with Russia. They cleared the airspace before so that there would be no interference with American helicopters when they came in to drop off the Army Delta Force team that raided the house, which ended up in his killing himself along with his wife and family by blowing himself up with an explosive vest. It's a victory of sorts, although when you consider all else that's going on, it's something of a token blessing. The situation in Ukraine. The good news is, I suppose, that it seems like it's going away from an imminent war. Increasingly, people I talk to in Ukraine and in the area appear to think that they are moving towards the U.S. offer for talks to establish negotiations over the future of NATO in Eastern Europe or states bordering the Soviet Union gives room for a negotiation, which would, of course, in itself would be beneficial to the Putin government, which until now has been often ignored by the U.S. and NATO when they repeatedly requested that their security concerns, mind you, security concerns have more to do with their internal stability than any possible attack against them. They don't want a lot of democratic nations bordering them being able to put pressure on Moscow. So, but anyway, it seems to be going away from that, and the possibility of a major, any kind of massive Russian invasion of Ukraine appears to be diminishing. Although I still believe that they will probably, they may very probably do a limited move on eastern Ukraine. The Russians are operating through the Europeans. It seems that France and Germany are very much interested in brokering a deal over the current crisis and establishing a permanent negotiating table with Russia for NATO, leaving the United States somewhat off base. I mean, this would appear to leave the United States somewhat out in the field. I think this is another Russian objective in net that they're dealing directly with the Europeans. So this is this is another development which we probably will take on greater significance in 2022.
Thank you so much, Martin Arostegui, the principal journalist, investigative journalist in the world. Thank you so much for this podcast in this Saturday. Thank you guys of the YouTube channel, and follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, and share this video. Thank you so much, Martin. See you next Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian. See you next Saturday. Hopefully the webcam will go.
Thank you. Bye.